there's two kind of conflicting thoughts I'm having about Max Kepler in this moment. So, yes, he has a big hit the other night. I still look at the numbers. Last 7 games, hitting 200 with a 227 on base percentage. Last 15 games, hitting 180 with a 236 on base percentage. Last 30 games, hitting 181 with a 269 on base percentage. And it's not like the slug has been off the charts either, right? But if you're thinking about postseason roster construction, can you make the case, and I'm kind of curious where you stood on this one, can you make the case that he provides you some degree of professionalism and thump as a pinch hitting option late in games, as a guy that still gives you the most pop from the left side against a right-handed starter in the postseason? Like, I don't think he's done enough to really warrant this like trust that the Phillies have in him. But if you just remove like the contract and how bad it's been aside, and you sit here on August 12th and think about what is our best way forward in October, is Max Kepler part of it?
Yeah, I definitely think he's in the consideration right now. And one thing I would point to, and I get it, it's a small sample size. In 35 at-bats in right field, which is his natural position, we talked for years about how you got to get Scott Kingery back to his natural position, and all of a sudden
it wasn't Scott's fault. None of that was Scott's fault.
All of a sudden he'll be great. Well, Max Kepler at his natural position is hitting 400 with a 964 OPS, as opposed to left field where he's hitting 190 with a 652 OPS. Now, that probably means nothing, but I do find it interesting, especially as we get into some of these stretches where maybe I know Rob Thompson said over the weekend that, well, we're going to give everybody a day off because the turf is hard in Texas. And I do remember being there for opening day a few years ago and players complaining about the surface. So there's maybe something to that, but I also find it to kind of be a convenient excuse. And one you were bailed out on by the fact that you were facing Corbin, a lefty, on Sunday, because there's no other way you were taking Brandon Marsh out of the starting lineup. So I do wonder whether they consider platooning a little bit more in right field with Nick Castellanos, who we've all made and seen, and it's not just the metrics, it's also our eyes, that it's been rough in right field. If he's not hitting against righties, which I believe the OPS is like 710 this year, is your best lineup against righties with Bader in center field, Marsh in left field, and Max Kepler in right field, a position that he's fielded well at in his career, and maybe he's a little more comfortable there. I don't know. It's, again, probably nothing, but it is something small that I noticed that whenever he seems to be in right field this year, he's hitting a little bit better.
Well, it's an interesting observation to make, and it sort of perfectly transitions to the next talking point. The Phillies have been very platoon reliant, platoon heavy. We've seen it now with Bohm out at third base, in left field, in center field, and second base. One place that has not really occurred to this point is right field. And Nick Castellanos has been dreadful lately. Last night was hard to watch, just non-competitive at bats in key situations. His last 30 games, he's hitting 203 with a 230 on base percentage, only slugging 339. It's just gotten worse as you kind of shrink the sample. Last 15, hitting a $186 with a 200 on base percentage. Last 7, hitting 111 with a 111 on base percentage. He doesn't walk. The power numbers have not been off the charts. The OPS, I believe, is down to 714 for the season now. I think he's hitting 259. There was a time this year where he said, like, look, he plays every day. We know the defensive limitations, but he does give you some sense of a presence in the middle of the lineup. I was okay leaving him out there every day. After a horrible start last year, he kind of got it together. He was one of their better playoff performers last postseason in that short series against the Mets. I guess what I'm wondering, like, I watched the at-bats. Like, I remember, like, one of his family members said, like, watch the games when the whole Castellanos conversation came up about a month and a half ago for the first time. I don't know, man. Like, I watch the games and I just see these at-bats, and in real time, I'm like, I think it's getting harder and harder to make a case for this guy as an everyday player. But I do wonder, is there enough of a track record? Is there enough of, like, he's still one of our bigger name guys? There's a history with him. We've seen him go cold and then get out of it in the past. What would the ramifications be in terms of the clubhouse dynamics, even if you were to sit him down in a platoon situation? I personally don't think that would go well. Not that other key players in the team wouldn't understand why, but I wonder what his energy and his mindset would be, and if there would be any kind of I don't know, clubhouse ramifications if Nick Castellanos became a platoon player. So I guess I'll ask you two different questions. Would you platoon him, and do you think they will?
Well, I think on paper, I would at least give it some run right now. Now, maybe he comes through and he starts to hit again. Like he hit 2 home runs off of Spencer Strider, a righty, in that postseason game. And really, you mentioned that if you just take the NLDS, Nick Castellanos is one of the great playoff performers of all time. In that series, he is absolutely raked every single time he's played in it. And I agree, when he's going even okay, he is your best option in the outfield on an everyday basis, even with the defensive limitations. But he's not going that way right now. And yeah, I mean, you do have to consider the clubhouse ramifications. I think it's less, are other guys going to revolt, and more, is he going to have like a negative energy that kind of rubs off on other people? Clearly, they considered that. And I mean,
would it be fair to say, like from my seat, and like full disclosure, I've not been in that clubhouse since last July, I want to say, so I have not seen the day-to-day this year. My impression would be that, and it's nothing against him as a guy. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he wants to win. I think he's like a professional baseball player. I suspect, though, that if they were to purely platoon him, that it would not go over well with him. I get the sense that he feels like he is, I don't know, owed, but he deserves to be in the lineup every day, and that he would not see the other viewpoint, the opposing viewpoint in doing this. And I do wonder what that would mean. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yes, I do. I think if you do that, you're probably burning the bridge for next year. Like you're saying, get through this season, maybe we win it all, you get a ring, and then we'll figure what happens with the last year of the contract in the winter. Clearly, they considered the possibility of taking him out for defensive replacement earlier this year, and when he revolted, there's no other explanation. He revolted, and then they didn't do it again. So he kind of, in a way, like bullied them out of doing that. It's just, has it gotten to a point now offensively where it's overwhelming? And I think it's possible, especially now that you have Bader and Marsh is playing so well, 2 things you didn't have going for you back earlier this season. It has to be a consideration, but it's one that can't be done lightly because, again, he's owed $20 million next season, and you're looking at probably having to eat that. It's possible that's what this is headed towards anyways. Like maybe around that Marlins series, like they pieced it together and they'll make it work for the rest of the season and then find a resolution for everyone in the offseason that doesn't involve him playing for the Phillies next year. I think that's a distinct possibility. But certainly, I think if you platoon him for the rest of the year, you're probably saying he's not coming back next season.